All right, everybody. We told y'all we was here with the most relevant book, topic, discussion, necessity. People and human beings, like species on this planet, we're furnaces. We need food for fuel, but it's running into a game right about now, which we have kind of hit like a rush point with the pandemic, leading right into a point where now food is an important discussion and possibly for the rest of 2020 and beyond. I was on top of this at the beginning of the year and inspired by this author, Kristin Lawless, to write about a song about something that she covered thoroughly in the book and further books that she will write to tell about how the game and the gangsterism of the food industry is corrupting and taking us out. And I wrote a song called Food as a Machine Gun for the Enemy Radio album and record video. And we wanted to get informative in the 30th year anniversary of Fear of a Black Planet, where I wrote the album on a thesis. I decided to write a key song on a book that I was also fortunate to be a person to actually give a blurb on it. And I read it, took it in, soaked it in as much as I could, but it's no better than having the actual author with us today who wrote the book, who explained it to the nook and cranny, exactly the dilemma and the situation we are stuck in right about now. And that's Kristin Lawless. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chuck. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for your song and bringing attention to this issue, which, as you said, is just like more relevant than ever right now with this pandemic we're all facing. So I'm just so happy to be here and to talk about it with you and your audience.
Yeah, the song was just to be able to shed light on the situation that's going down because songs have to have topics, and this happened to be relevant because everybody is questioning what they're eating right about now.
Yeah.
You hear these restaurants coming up with these alternatives. People wonder, okay, are these alternatives because people are running out of what they consider things they used to call food? And I once heard a story about some foods are like one molecule away from being plastic.
Oh yeah. Well, not only that, there's literal plastic in our food because it's all along the food chain. All processed foods are packaged mostly in plastic, and the chemicals that make up those packaging are really bad. I mean, I talked to tons of researchers for my book, and they're alarmed at what they're finding. Some of them are called endocrine disruptors, and all that means is they affect our hormonal systems. And they're causing like all kinds of reproductive health problems. I mean, we're seeing lots of problems with like infertility, for example, causing cancers, all kinds of cancers. And it's shocking when I was doing the research because there's no agency protecting us from the chemical manufacturers, and including big agriculture companies, big food companies, and then the chemical manufacturers that make all the stuff that goes into that. The FDA and the EPA. You have some great lines about them in that song, but it's true that there's a like gangsterism going on in the sense that they're not protecting the public health, which is what their job, that's what they're supposed to do. We pay them tax dollars to protect our health. And instead what they're doing is they're taking money from these corporations and they're totally influenced by the corporations and they do whatever the corporations want essentially. And they've corrupted the science so that you get these statements from EPA, FDA, oh, it's safe, don't worry about it. Couldn't be further from the truth. I talked to dozens of independent researchers who say that, I mean, they're completely outraged that this is going on.
What gave you the idea to get involved with this in the first place? You know, your background, things you saw every day. I mean, you kind of went at this kind of like, you saw this gangsterism and went head on at it.
Yeah, well, I got super interested in just my own health and nutrition. I've always been a writer. I've always been a journalist. And I moved to New York to pursue journalism, writing a lot of music, and culture, and politics. But I got really interested in my own health, and that just prompted me to start like doing a lot of research, a lot of digging. Ended up going to school for nutrition and studying nutrition in school. then decided to just make my whole journalism career really about food and health and culture, because these things are all interconnected. And a big part of my book is not just looking at how the foods have changed our bodies, but how the food industry has changed the culture around food and, changed the way we relate to food and understand food. Like 100 years ago, most of the population in America was involved in the production of their own food on some level. Like our grandparents, great-grandparents had gardens in the backyard, or some of them are farmers. Like now, less than 1% of the U.S. population are farmers. So we don't even know where our food comes from. You ask people like how are things grown, they have no idea. And that leaves us like super vulnerable to what we're seeing now, which is we have no autonomy, no control over our food. And now we have to rely on these food chains, and they come from so far away. Sometimes it's global. These are global food chains. They've become disrupted by this pandemic, and it just highlights how vulnerable we all are in terms of, like getting access to our own food, being able to understand our food. So I just really was so interested in how the industry changed so much culturally around food. And so I just pursued it full time. I worked with doctors in New York City in a cardiologist's office, and I got really like firsthand clinical experience dealing with people. I saw how people really don't understand the food supply. They think things are healthy when in fact they're not. And I just decided that, after doing like 10 years of research and writing, I just needed to write a book about it, because there was so much that's not covered and hasn't been covered in a book. And so that's what I set out to do in the book.
You noticed an immediate switch when you went from west to east and then back to west. Did you notice any regional differences in how they went at food?
Yeah, definitely, like California tends to have like a more, especially like the Bay Area where I went to school, like has a more progressive has some more progressive ideas around food, but it's an American problem.
It's still crime, even when they say that something's healthy or plant-based or whatever. There's crime that's seeping all into that rhetoric as well, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, and that's like something that really people need to pay attention to, because what the food industry is doing now is it's seizing upon this idea of like, oh, if I eat plant-based, I'm healthy. If I eat plant-based, then I'm protecting the environment. But that's not true. It's not true at all. So if you look at a product like the Impossible Burger, which like is getting all this hype right now, but guess what that's made out of? It's made out of GMO soy. So who makes GMO soy is Monsanto, now Bayer. One of the largest multinational companies in the world, controls like all of our seed product, all of our seeds, all of our crops.
You say Bayer like aspirin Bayer, Bayer?
Right.
The same
So
company
they purchased
Germany.
Monsanto, yeah.
Wow. Right.
And they make the pesticide. So they grow the crop, and then they have the crop is Roundup ready. So that means they use Roundup, which they also make. They spray that all over the crop. And guess that's a neat financial package for them, because they're making out on both ends.
So that's like having a river where you got the sewage plant and the bottled water company operating out of the same place.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
That's Kristin Lawless right here, y'all, formerly known as Food, the author of this book, which is probably going to be the most relevant book, if not right now, for the next, fortunately and unfortunately, for the next year and a half. But it's also a light to tell y'all to watch out. We'll be right back with Kristin. We're going to ask some real serious questions, if they haven't been serious already, but right after this break. But check out the video that she inspired with her book called Food as a Machine Gun. Right here, that new rap station app. Get it.
How not to die by the weapon, formerly known as food. Hell not to die. Sugar, who you talking to? Dirty water, who be loving you? Stroke, no joke, musta hit that salt. Don't look at me, cause it ain't my fault. I know you want it, say you need it, and you eat it, cause you want it. Sugar, you don't love me. Sugar, you don't need me. Now, it be eating me. Eat it up. Got us fighting diabetes. Stress levels, sleepless, emotional, mental. Drugs in the food I love screwing up my physical. I'll never fall in love again with this hate on my plate and Food and Drug Administration. Is it my hallucination? Food is a machine gun. 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 Sugar, sugar, I know you move me. I know you wanna drink me. You and everything, not just candy. Worse than a pop-out, shoot 'em up, kill 'em up movie. A ride going on in that corner. About a word on a bird in that corner. Toxic, yeah, they just box it. Hard to tell the paranoid avoid it like an opioid. How sweet it is. They just line up these kids. How happy is a meal when dancing with cancer with that God bless America, FDA romancing. A new old kind of gangster get down. Pesticide chemical get around. Fast food industrial sit down. EPA's a gang, throw it up now. Food is a machine gun. 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 Food as a machine gun. How not to die by the weapon, formerly known as food.
Sugar, sugar, call me late at night. By daylight, stomach busted, not feeling right. Back hurting, heart burning, I need oxygen. Sweet and sour, more addictive than your Oxycontin. GMOs in your new clothes. Food deserts in them corner stores. Salty, salty, where's the reservoir? Double the price if you black and poor. What kind of plant is in your plant burger? Pesticides on your organics and they do it early. Chicken, chemicals, fossil fuels emissions. Go ahead and ask who is up in that kitchen. Food industry like music industry design to make you go crazy and just lose your mind. Chips, dip, soda, yo, give me some. Pow, pow, food is a machine gun.
Food is a machine gun. Food is a machine gun. Food is a machine gun. Food is a machine gun. Food is a machine gun. Food is a machine gun. Food is a machine gun. Food is a machine gun. The real beef.
All right, welcome back. I'm Chuck D. Glad y'all are tuned in. Tell people to get that app, which you are also invited into that chat to ask some questions for the author of probably this relevant book, formerly known as Food. That's a hell of a title. And I'm gonna do my Brian Gumble impression, talking to Kristin Lawless here, and put on my glasses right here. Like Mark Bittman, who's on the front, is the author of How to Cook Everything. We take food for granted, but Kristin Lawless has done a thorough job of describing how so much of what we eat doesn't qualify as food, and the terrible, sometimes catastrophic effects that transition has had and will have on our bodies and our planet. And right now, Kristin, there is probably every single person on this planet right now is thinking about their bodies and their planet.
Yeah.
Tell us really seriously, pandemic, the connections of food. You sent me some email the last couple of weeks predicting kind of like the food lines in Pittsburgh, San Antonio, California, Florida, long food lines, waiting for food, whether it's good or bad. But it's almost like, bodies are furnaces and they need food, but waiting on the long line for bad food. What are the options for survival?
Yeah. So this is where I'm saying this pandemic has really shown us the vulnerabilities of our food supply. Like, we have to rely on these huge corporations to get us food. The quality of that food is not good. Those foods are making people sick. They're making people have all these chronic diseases like diabetes. We're seeing that diabetes is making people more vulnerable to this virus, making people get sick more easily and not be able to recover from it. So, like, we're in this predicament now where we've sort of allowed the corporations to take control of our food, and we have to rely on them. But they're actually harming us with those foods. So what do we do? I mean, and this is the question that everyone should be asking right now, because yeah, it's about your personal health, but this is also like a larger systemic issue, right? Why do people have to wait in those foods? Why do some people not have enough food? You know, why don't people have access to good, healthy, organic, chemical-free food? You know, these are all issues that are coming to the light in so many ways right now. So, I mean, to me, the solutions are in relocalizing our food supply, creating communities, and starting to understand, like, how can we grow enough food to feed like the 10 people around me in my neighborhood? You know, like, we need like basic growing skills. We need people don't know how to cook anymore. I mean, this is another thing that the food industry has taken away from us in a sense, or maybe we allowed it to happen, but whatever the case, the last 2 to 3 generations, people growing up didn't learn how to cook from their parents and their grandparents, because processed foods were in the kitchens and they were easier and they were more affordable. People have to work long hours. You know, like, how do you have the time to do all that cooking and shopping and cleaning? That's a lot of work. So this whole thing needs to be restructured so that it benefits people and the planet, and not just like the bottom line of these corporations.
That was almost like a food pun, a poetic food pun. You said what they're taking away from us, and then now we see lines of, you know, people outside the restaurants for takeaways.
Yeah.
You know, when we're talking about food, of course, we're talking about. You never thought that when they said more farms, that hearing or just by listening, that more people are going to equate farms, PHARMS, FARMS, because every time you turn on the damn TV, for anyone 40 and over, the first thing that they recognize is a pharmaceutical commercial.
Yeah.
This is replaced even, or it's hip by hip, side to side alongside food.
Right.
I mean, pharmaceuticals, those are the farms of the 21st century, true?
Oh, yeah. And that's the thing. Sometimes people, you know, listen to my critiques and say, yeah, but we're living longer than ever. You know, our lifespan is longer than ever. Yeah, but how are all these people staying alive? They're staying alive because they're being managed by pharmaceutical companies and their products. You know, like, we have drugs for diabetes, we have drugs for high blood pressure, we have drugs for like any ailment that largely comes out of what we're eating and our food supply. You can take a pill for it and it can be managed. You're not going to feel good. You're not going to live a healthy, fulfilling life, most likely, but you'll stay alive. And, you know, I mean, yeah, that's what's happening.
What would you consider is a healthy diet? Because we have a message from Deja, who says she went vegan and it took her a few months to realize that every vegan wasn't good for her.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
everything vegan wasn't good for her, I should say.
That's true. So my issue is with industrial foods. It doesn't matter if it's a plant food, doesn't matter if it's meat, milk, whatever it is. If it's industrially produced, it's not going to be good for you because it's getting produced on this huge scale. The nutrients have been depleted. They're adding all these things like chemical fertilizers, pesticides, antibiotics, hormones, all that's added into the food. So it's not about, is it vegan? Is it, you know, meat, whatever. That's not the point. The point is eat whole foods and eat the ones that haven't been altered to such a degree that we're seeing in packaged processed foods. And like, of course, this is complicated because so many people don't have access to those foods.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's not like so easy. I'm not trying to say this is easy, but I think it is.
It's a war. You've said it in this book. You've said this is a war. I mean, formerly known as food, how the industrial food system is changing our minds, bodies, and culture, says not only is it a battle, it's a war. And this is Kristin Lawless we're talking to, people. Get that Rap Station app. You're on the rapstation.com/app. It's going down. Probably the most relevant book in the upcoming 18 months as it was the previous year when she emerged with the book. And it's truth to form right about now. It's serious at war. I mean, for example, you get children, they go to schools, every other child has got to eat the school food. I mean, who monitors and manages that? Is that a state to state mandate? Is it something based on a local area?
Yeah.
Is it something that's just straight out national?
Yeah, these are federal guidelines. So there's like a federal school lunch program, and guess who's involved with those? All these big corporations. I'm talking about like Nestle, Kellogg's, Unilever, General Mills, like all of these huge corporations. They have contracts with, for example, the schools and what they're going to put in the schools for the kids, and they make a ton of money on it. So that's what's going on there.
Man, I would also ask you the question of the system. When somebody says that this is a personal thing, this is a systemic thing that's affecting everybody. So food is across the board. It's not a thing where I make my personal choices because it's the umbrella falling on everybody's head, right? The rain falling on everybody's head.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a big part of my book. A big critique of my book is there's, the food movement or so-called food movement of people telling everyone just, buy organic, go to your farmer's market. And that's all true. Like, I support that. I believe that's really important, but we have to address the larger systemic issues like I was mentioning earlier. Like, why doesn't everyone have access to healthy whole foods in their communities? Why doesn't everyone make enough money to afford those foods? Why are people working such long hours that they don't have time to do any of that? So yeah, this is a broad systemic problem. And that's why, like, I wrote the book so that people have the information about their own health, but I also want them to be motivated to try to change this. And I think at this particular moment, we have a rare opportunity to really make that clear to people. Like, look, this is how the industrial food system has, we've contributed to this pandemic through the industrial food system in the first place, and how its products are literally killing people at this point because they're becoming, they already were with chronic disease. It was just a slower process. Now we have this virus like speeding it up, and we're seeing it in real time. So I just feel like it's a moment where, and that's why I'm like really appreciative to you for your song to be bringing this to like a broader and wider audience who, if we have enough people to understand this and are motivated to change it, then we can do it. It's just like anything else.
We could go into, when I write songs, I write a song based on something and I'm usually in attack mode. I might not be giving solutions, but what I do in a song is I point to the source. I rely on the research of the source I'm pointing to, and I truncate it into words and music or whatever so it can sprout out. I usually don't come up with a lot of solutions because I'm pointing to the source to come up with solutions. And that's the meaning. That's what a song does. But there's solutions in this book. Who are your adversaries? Have any of your adversaries and critics addressed you directly? And were they way off base, or was it a struggle for, was it back and forth philosophy and also factual, hodgepodging?
No, I think when you write a book like this or you're researching something else, the people that are to you are the people that are invested in the chemical industries, the food industries, the agriculture industries, and they will defend it even if it's like nonsensical.
But they're defending it almost like kind of like invisible to the masses, and they defend it and they go into hiding. And identifying these people is probably the most difficult thing, especially in a society that's distracted.
Oh, for sure. And they look like authorities, and they look like they know what they're talking about, and they're smart, and they know how to frame it. So the thing is that industry, and this is all, you can read about this. There's been many articles and research on this. There's a book called The Merchants of Doubt. It's like there's this whole industry around casting doubt on things that do appear to be harmful to human health and environmental health. And industry corporations they handpick these scientists, researchers, academics, whatever, to do the research in a certain way that they get the result they want. And then they have these people just kind of trolling anyone who's telling the truth about the situation, going after people, other scientists, journalists who are telling the truth, and they try to discredit them and say, oh, this person's crazy, doesn't know what they're talking about. I mean, right. The scientists I interview in my book, like, they get it all the time, and they're some of the most, like, credentialed people you could imagine. They're saying the truth, and they get criticized.
Yeah, that's a breadcrumbing right into what's going on right now. Whether we want to believe pandemic or not, one thing that's coming up out of this is that doctors and scientists are shaking their heads like, yo, somebody else is in control of my narrative. Mm-hmm. And when we try to bring science to the table, they're throwing it out for the sake of big business. Sure. And identifying these gangsters could sometimes put you in a gangster chokehold. And this is why the truth got to come out with a society saying, yo, this is the truth. And you can't ostracize this person for coming out with the truth and making this a single individual thing. Author of this book, Kristin Lawless, formerly known as Food, How the Industrial Food System is Changing Our Minds, Bodies, and Culture. And it's on St. Martin's Press. So, this is from Chuck D to St. Martin's Press. When I was asked to do a blurb, and I was thankful to do the blurb, St. Martin's Press, understand that you got probably the most relevant book of our time, to in your own, midst to do the best thing. Naomi Klein, as a matter of fact, a person named Phoebe says hello, Kristin, and says she can talk more about cooking at home. Because I know when I cook at the crib, man, it's like I stay away from the salt. I try to do the best I can, but there's an area to slip up because you get lost on what's processed, what's not processed, all the way down to the spices.
But let me tell you something about salt that you might not know. And so, if you're cooking whole foods at home, like you have your meat and your vegetables, right, you put as much salt as you want that tastes good to you. That's not the kind of salt that's going to hurt you. The kind of salt that's going to hurt you is the sodium that's added to all the processed foods. If you look at a nutrition label on a processed food, like say it's a frozen pizza or something, right, it's off the charts in there.
Because it's a preservative?
It's used as a preservative. It's used so it tastes good. I mean, like, salt makes things taste good. And those processed foods, like, the reason they taste good is they're engineered to taste good with all kinds of additives and preservatives and flavorings. But salt is a key one. And humans need salt. It's part of, like, our chemistry. We need salt. So I think people sometimes don't understand that, like, if you're just making all whole foods, like, you should eat the salt to taste. It's the processed foods where you have to watch out for the sodium content.
And in the cases of sugar.
Yeah, sugar's out. Like,
I thought sugar and salt was sitting in the same caboose, but sugar's out of the ride. Right?
Sorry. Wow. There's nothing good about sugar.
Whoa.
That's it. Like, sugar is inflammatory. It promotes diabetes. It promotes, like, everything you don't want in your body.
Down your immune system, especially like right now.
Right. Yes. So you want to avoid foods that promote an inflammatory response in the body. And the number one thing is sugar. It's like, it wreaks havoc on your gut health. It wreaks havoc on your brain health. The other thing you want to avoid, the second most important thing, is anything with a refined grain. So that's like refined wheat products, which is also like the backbone of the processed food industry. It's in that frozen pizza. So corn, soy, wheat, if you look at any processed food item, you're going to see one of those ingredients. It's refined. It's been grown on a huge scale. It's been sprayed with chemicals. And then it's been completely, all the nutrition has been removed, and then it's in that product. And it's usually combined with sodium and sugar. So, like, those are all highly inflammatory to your system. And that's the one key thing we're seeing with this virus, is that people who have this chronic level of inflammation, which leads to those conditions, diabetes, heart disease, all of that, are more vulnerable to this virus. And I was researching this, and I found that only 12% of the entire U.S. population is considered metabolically healthy. So doesn't have diabetes, doesn't have high blood pressure. Like, that's crazy. If you think about 12, that's like, that shows you right there. We were already set up for this problem for many, many decades before, the virus took over.
Let's say, and we're talking to Kristin Lawless, author of formerly known as Food, basically, exposing the gangsterism of organizations, corporations, and any other Asians you can come up with. Nations are involved. This is international conspiracy and corruption.
Mm-hmm.
Water. All the packaging amongst water. My daughter makes sure. It's so much print on some damn water. Tell me, ionized, alkaline.
No. So that's plastic, right?
Right.
You don't want to be drinking out of plastic on a regular basis. So I talk a lot about this in the book. That's what the endocrine disruptors are. So, people probably have heard of, BPA. That's a very common, sometimes you'll see BPA free on labels. BPA is a chemical used in the manufacturing of plastic. I have a whole section of this on my book. BPA has been linked to in hundreds of studies, thousands of studies, hundreds of studies in humans, cancers, endocrine dysfunction. You name it, this chemical, the researcher, one of the most famous researchers on the subject, called it the ultimate terrorist molecule, because that's what it does in your body. And it's in that plastic bottle you're drinking. I don't know, it might say BPA free, but then this is what happened. People got upset about BPA. They told manufacturers, we don't want that in our food or in our water or whatever. And so they said, okay, no problem, we'll take the BPA out. But then they added something called BPS or BPF. So these are similar chemical compounds, but they don't have BPA names, so they can write BPA free, but they do the same stuff in your body. So this is what happens when we let the manufacturers control what's regulated and what's not. Rather than, a government could come and say, we're not putting this chemical in our food anymore because it's been proven to cause all these harms. But so you see how they did that.
You got people close to you that have run away from you in the last 5 to 10. So here she come again. Oh God, start closing up their ears.
I think everyone around me just already knows the deal. They've all been converted, and that's just how we live and how we eat. So,
what would you say about places like? I think you answered this a little bit earlier. They call the food deserts. Poor communities of color, black folk. Look, ain't got a Whole Foods nowhere near us.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, there always was that store that found the fresh fish, the fresh produce, picked all the fresh goods, but those stores were eradicated, eliminated in the 70s.
Right.
So now it's like some, processed foods is like 95% up in the areas around these neighborhoods. What does a person do?
Yeah, this is where I'm talking about. These are the larger systemic issues where we need to figure out ways to come together with our communities and our cities, whatever it is, and figure out ways that we can get people, everyone deserve. It's like a human right to have access to clean, good, healthy, and chemical-free food. Everyone, that should just be a basic human right. And right now, I'd say 90-something% don't have that. So I don't know. That's why. I actually wanted to ask you. Do you feel writing the song? What kind of response have you gotten from other people, in the hip hop world about this issue? Are people interested in wanting to change this? And what's the response been?
Well, the thing that allowed me and got me involved in writing this song, and last week, coincidentally, we had 2 hip hop artists who they're totally entrenched in the philosophy of trying to, make sure you have the right nutrition and food. Supernova Sloan, he's the son of Queen Afua, who's always been into healthy, nutritious, forward-thinking food from Brooklyn, and also DJ Cavum from Colorado, who grows, proper foods and is Totally is a nutritious visionary, and both of those guys are hip hop artists, and they're surrounded by communities, but they're outnumbered. And then there's not a there's a hip hop media that looks the other way because it's not popular.
Yeah.
But what we've seen over the last 10 years, especially, is the line of 40 year old artists going on a deep cliff free fall because of all of the elements in the neighborhood and all the ailments that have been prevalent, and they get almost they get maximized and they metastasize because if your culture is doing this at a certain age and everybody is they might get their drink on, they smoke on, or whatever, the bad food on at 20, they go into their 40s, and now all of a sudden, I mean, we've lost, like, from people like Sean Price to Fife. Fred the Godson passed away from COVID complications. We lost Steezo last week to a heart attack. So in addressing one of these areas that has to be looked at closely, I decided to write Food as a Machine Gun, because as a mode of attack, not a mode of I'm coming up with solutions. These are the books I pointed to. Scholars like yourself, researchers, people who are thoroughly in the examination. Those are the solutions. And those are, tell people, like, a song is going to bring you to the water. It ain't going to make you drink. And it ain't going to be plastic water either. I'm saying that was the meaning of the song. But if you look around in hip-hop responds to what its business model and what its media and corporations or its lobbyists tell it to be or do anyway. It's just that this is a key point right now where everything, athletics, entertainment, everything is leveled down to the ground. And it has to sprout up in a new seed to go up and forward. It can't go down because it's not, popular music is not rooted. Right. Music that's been around for a while, marinated, it's rooted. And so therefore these are the things that's being noticed now, whether it's in sports, they're like, oh, look at Michael Jordan, because he's had this thing rooted in folklore for so long. And same thing comes with people like myself, fortunately, and other people. They want a pop artist has to be able to say, I want to make this my main narrative. But then it also goes in the area of marketing and big business. And these are the areas that these places are staying far away because they're not sure themselves. So why would they invest in something that they don't know about, that they don't even have any idea what this does, because they go on popularity. And right now the popularity is pretty much going the route of what will not make you healthy. Maybe the popularity is going the route of things that might kill you, that you could probably get away with. So we hope that tide turns. It's not necessarily about wanting a catastrophe to wake people up. We came up with the song based off of your book as saying we're already awakened because we've had these tragedies and these deaths in the 40s and the young 50s, early 40s, and late 30s. Fred the Godson passed away last week, COVID situation, 35 years old. And a lot of it is traced back to, like, your immune system is broken down by your intake.
Yeah.
A lot of the older artists, myself and Ice-T, and we knock on plastic because there ain't wood on this table. Sorry. But, I'll be 60, God willing, in August. He's 61. You have to pay attention to your immune system at all times with different time zones. Even if you're eating the right food, your 6 becomes 9, your 9 becomes 5, 2 in the morning. So immune system and traveling has to be the number one thing. But also your intake and your immune system have to be everything, just to walk down the street in this atmosphere and environment. So that's, at least from my end, what sparked me to say it's the right time. It's the right time to write a song. No, I don't write songs so it can change the narrative in the world. I would like it to be, but I don't want the fingers to be pointed at me because it's not my job to have it pointed at me. My job is to be a prism of light, and I'm very happy to point to the prism of light that you've given us in this book. I was honored to be asked to give the blurb off of, I guess, a little bit of a consciousness that I have, that I've exuded over the years, but to actually say that stops there. What do you do with culture is that you got to shed light on those that have been out there in the trenches doing the work, and actually in prevent mode of the atrocities that have actually been, beckoned on people by these corporations and the sake of this all the time. Yeah. And this is actually kind of throwing us into this pandemic.
Exactly.
This like money at any cost. So, okay, you can go to your whatever green pasture, your oasis, but you've gotten your money off of the death or the ailment of so many, and it's the wrong thing. That's the thing about it. There's things in this book that you have to look at somebody in a corporation and you say, you doing wrong, dog. Dog, you were wrong. But, I think what's actually happening in rearing its head, that people are also looking at the gangsterism in the currency system. The old currency systems are falling, and so they got to gangster their way into a new currency system with new monies. And about this, what do you think? That's a long diatribe. We are tuned in. Kristin Lawless, author of the book formerly known as Food. Make sure you tune in. This is exclusive to the Rap Station app, but will be heard on all those platforms all over the place. I mean,
one thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
One thing I want people to understand. So what we have an opportunity right now with this pandemic, because we're seeing all the problems with our food supply. But I think what people don't realize is this system that we're living under, this industrial food system completely controlled by corporations, it's only been around for about 100 years. So, but people born now in the last 2 to 3 generations are just born into this food culture. So it's completely normal to them. They go to McDonald's, they eat their processed food. It doesn't even seem weird, because how would they know? They were born into it. But when you look,
how long does it really take to get that out of you? Like, if you grew up 30 years on McDonald's, I mean, really, seriously, some people saying that it's in you and ain't leaving you, and it's trained you, and it's hard to wean off of it, or once you get it out of you. I mean, what do you think about that?
I don't agree with that, because I think the body wants to be healthy. Like, its job is to keep you alive and keep you healthy. So once you decide, like, you're not going to eat that food anymore, and you start cleaning up your diet as best you can and taking care of yourself in every other way too, your body's going to heal and you're going to get better. Your inflammation's going to come down. Your immune system's going to improve. You're going to, like, there's so many things. It's just going to happen. And so I think that the day you decide that you're just not going to eat that food anymore, your body starts healing.
Kristin Lawless, I would also ask questions like, what do you think? Let me take another break right now. We'll come back and wrap up with Kristin Lawless. Praise for formerly known as Food, and I got a couple of questions I want to reform, get to you, and then we'll take it on out. All right? That's cool?
Sounds good.
All right. Marcel, take it.
How not to die by the weapon formerly known as Food. Hell not to die. Sugar, who you talking to? Dirty water, who be loving you? Stroke, no joke, musta hit that salt. Don't look at me, cause it ain't my fault. I know you want it, say you need it, and you eat it, cause you want it. Sugar, you don't love me. Sugar, you don't need me. Now, it be eating me. Eat it up. Got us fighting diabetes. Stress levels, sleepless, emotional, mental. Drugs in the food, I love screwing up my physical. I'll never fall in love again with this hate on my plate and Food and Drug Administration. Is it my hallucination? Food is a machine gun. 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 Food Food is a machine gun. Sugar, sugar, I know you move me. I know you wanna drink me. You and everything, not just candy. Worse than a pop out, shoot 'em up, kill 'em up movie. A ride going on in that corner. About a word on a bird in that corner. Toxic, yeah, they just box it. Hard to tell the paranoid avoid it like an opioid. How sweet it is. They just line up these kids. How happy is a meal when dancing with cancer with that God bless America FDA romancing. A new old kind of gangster get down. Pesticide chemical get around. Fast food industrial sit down. EPA's a gang, throw it up now. Food is a machine gun. 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 Food is a machine gun.
Food as a machine gun.
How not to die by the weapon, formerly known as food.
Sugar, sugar, call me late at night. By daylight, stomach busted, not feeling right. Back hurting, heart burning, I need oxygen. Sweet and sour, more addictive than your Oxycontin. GMOs in your new clothes. Food deserts in them corner stores. Salty, salty, where's the reservoir? Double the price if you black and poor. What kind of plant is in your plant burger? Pesticides on your organics and they do it early. Chicken, chemicals, fossil fuels emissions. Go ahead and ask who is up in that kitchen. Food industry like music industry design to make you go crazy and just lose your mind. Chips, dip, soda, yo, give me some. Pow, pow, food is a machine gun.
Food is a machine gun. Food is a machine gun. Food is a machine gun. Food is a machine gun. Food is a machine gun. Food is a machine gun. Food is a machine gun. Food is a machine gun.
The real beef is inside you.
Wrap up this brilliant conversation with Kristin Lawless, author of the book formerly known as Food. I'm going to do my Brian Gumble thing, throwing my glasses like he does in Real Sports. App Station app. Got that right to do it, Kristin. I said, here's Laurie David, Academy Award-winning producer of The Inconvenient Truth and Fed Up. That was two big works right there. Quote, unless you make it yourself, you have no idea what you are eating, and Kristin Lawless explains why. Read this book before you put another bite of food in your or your kids' mouths. That's Laurie David. And Naomi Klein, author of No Is Not Enough, and This Changes Everything. Those are dope titles. In this revelatory survey of the dangers of the industrial food system, Lawless offers crucial tools for navigating it safely. And this, I'm telling y'all, you get this, navigate it through, you'll be able to see things clearer, you'll be able to see the pros and cons in the other books that you have to pick up, or you got already. She asked us to think holistically about food, why it can't be separated from other struggles for justice, and what it means to demand transformative change. And that's Kristin Lawless' book, formerly known as Food. And a battle. Do you feel also that the corporations look at the holistic movement as a threat, or they just try to just overtake it and then control the narrative of the holistic movement?
Yeah, I mean, if you look, what they've done is the big corporations have co-opted the organic industry. So now we have industrial organic, or all these labels on the front packages, organic, natural, all this stuff doesn't mean anything because it's all same corporations making the products. They just tweak the ingredients a little bit. Maybe it didn't have pesticides sprayed on it, but it still has all these additives, preservatives, chemicals in the packaging, etc. So yeah, they just co-opt it and then they sell it back to you.
Myron says in the chat, he He says, does the book offer solutions and affordable solutions? Because a lot of people think if I go to the right healthy way of living, I'm too broke to do that. I mean,
Yeah.
we've heard that conversation.
Yeah. So I do offer solutions. I have a manifesto at the end of the book where I'm saying like we need to collectively demand change. I mean, this administration, forget it, but hopefully in the future we'll be able to really influence that so that we have federal guidelines and regulations and we can localize our food supply too. But in terms of like affordable food options, a lot of Whole Foods actually can be affordable. So like if you can get to a store that does have actual Whole Foods, you can buy like nuts and seeds and things like that in bulk and beans. And when you start, if you have the time, if you can start preparing your own foods, like big batches of things at home and have stuff in the fridge and the freezer, then like you start to see that actually these processed foods, a lot of them are charging you more because it's all ready to go and it's all prepped for you. Whereas if you can buy just simple whole food ingredients, cook them yourself, prep them yourself, and takes more time for sure. But it isn't always necessarily more expensive.
Right. Some of your best stores that you like to go to. Where do you shop to get, your food or your seeds or whatever?
Well, when I was living in Brooklyn, I was a huge fan of the Park Slope Food Co-op because that's the largest, 17,000 members, worker member owned. So like that's the only one in the country like that. You had to work there if you wanted to shop there, and all the food was only 20% marked up. So that allowed a hugely diverse group of people to be able to shop there because it was really super affordable. That's in my manifesto, and that's a model that we could replicate all across the country. People getting together in buyers co-ops. It means you can buy things in greater quantities. The prices come down. You get them, available into your communities. So that model is great. That's what I did in Brooklyn. Now that I'm in California, I don't have access to that co-op anymore, but we do have these amazing farmers markets, and the farmers markets in California, even for organic, are affordable because there's so many farms here. And, so it's like the prices are not that high if you actually go look at your farmers markets. And that there are a lot of farmers markets across the country. And especially now where we're seeing all these food shortages and stuff in regular grocery stores, the demand for locally produced foods is just shot up. Local scale farmers can't keep up with the kind of demand they're having now. But that just shows you like that's what's resilient. Those are the food systems that actually work and actually help people get access to local foods and healthy foods.
You take this interview, spread it around your social media. We will too, especially on the new rap station app, Kristin Lawless. Underneath, y'all see all the information, but give everybody verbally how they get in touch with you, get the book, and also possibly even form their organizations up and to be that really consolidated union that needs protection.
Yeah, so you can go to my website, which is KristinLawless.com. On there's a little thing about the book where you can click on that. You can see where to get it. I have Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and I would encourage people, if you're really interested in understanding the deceptive nature of big food and its products, go to my Instagram account. It's called Kristin Can I Eat This? And on that account, what I do is I have people send me pictures of food products and say, like, is this food? Like, should I eat this or not? And then I break down ingredient by ingredient, why or why not that's food. And it's been, I think, really helpful for people to have those concrete examples. Like, this is a product I thought was healthy, but actually, whoa, now that you explain it to me, I understand that it's not. So check that out for sure. That's
major. Thanks a whole lot for actually, bringing this to light, and we'll continue to bring it to light. And the inspiration behind Food as a Machine Gun by Enemy Radio, which y'all can go out there and check out also here on the Rap Station app, and also the book, which is The Source, formerly known as Food, Kristin Lawless. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Yes. Yesterday I did some watching on YouTube of Larry King in '99 interviewing Prince, and I got pumped up to do this one. Thank you. Peace out, y'all. Thanks a lot, Marcel, my man Magic Marcel in the background, our head producer, and Andrea, and we're holding it down. Remember, check this out and be prepared to at least think about what you put in your mouth when it comes down to something that could be formerly known as food. Peace.
Thank you.
How not to die by the weapon formerly known as food. Hell not to die. Sugar, sugar, who you talking to? Dirty water, who be loving you? Stroke, no joke, must have hit that salt. Don't look at me cause it ain't my fault. I know you want it, say you need it, and you eat it cause you want it. Sugar, sugar, you don't love me. Sugar, sugar, you don't need me. Now, it be eating me. Eat it up. Got us fighting diabetes. Stress level, sleepless, emotional, mental. Drugs and the food I love screwing up my physical. I'll never fall in love again with this hate on my plate and Food and Drug Administration. Is it my hallucination? Food is a machine gun. 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 Sugar, sugar, I know you move me. I know you wanna drink me. You and everything, not just candy. Worse than a pop out, shoot 'em up, kill 'em up movie. A ride going on in that corner. About a word on a bird in that corner. Toxic, yeah, they just box it. Hard to tell the paranoid avoided like an opioid. How sweet it is. They just line up these kids. How happy is a meal when dancing with cancer with that God bless America, FDA romancing. A new old kind of gangster get down. Pesticide chemical get around. Fast food industrial sit down. EPA's a gang, throw it up now. Food is a machine gun. 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 Food as a machine gun. How not to die by the weapon formerly known as food.
Sugar, sugar, call me late at night. By daylight, stomach busted, not feeling right. Back hurting, heart burning, I need oxygen. Sweet and sour, more addictive than your Oxycontin. GMOs in your new clothes. Food deserts in them corner stores. Salty, salty, where's the reservoir? Double the price if you black and poor. What kind of plant is in your plant burger? Pesticides on your organics and they do it early. Chicken, chemicals, fossil fuels emissions. Go ahead and ask who is up in that kitchen. Food industry like music industry design to make you go crazy and just lose your mind. Chips, dip, soda, yo, give me some. Pow, pow, food is a machine gun.
Food is a machine gun. Food is a machine gun. Food is a machine gun. Food is a machine gun. Food is a machine gun. Food is a machine gun. Food is a machine gun. Food is a machine gun. The real beef is inside you.